Welcome to the channel. My name is Rob and today we are going to be painting some Blood Angels. So we are going to do a nice quick and snappy tutorial for you guys today where we're going to paint some nice vibrant Blood Angels. And this is the way that I would paint most red armor. I like my armies to pop on the tabletop, and I think this is the easiest way to go about doing that. It's very few steps. It's in fact 2 steps, and it's going to require us to have 2 colors for the red armor, and it's perfect if you are an airbrusher as well. Big thank to Crusader Games for sending me the Maximus pattern kind of battle group with the new Heresy Mark 4s in. They look absolutely awesome, and they particularly look good in Blood Angels armor colors as well. And I hope that you guys like the look of this one. It's a very vibrant red, and that's because of the way that we're going to start. We are going to start with our miniature primed in white. Now we're going to not do any kind of zenithal highlighting or pre-shades with a white here. This is the absolute easiest way to get your nice vibrant red, which is to start with a white primed miniature and then hit that whole model with our kind of top red, our brightest red. Now, of course, doing this, we get no kind of shading that we would get with a zenithal highlight or starting from a dark base coat and then working our way up. But the benefit of this is because it's over pure white, a good decent white base coat, good decent white primer, it does mean that this is going to be a nice punchy armor. In terms of our next steps, we obviously need to add shading to this armor, and the way we're going to do that is put some Purple Swarm straight through the airbrush. So we use pure red as our pure red air as our armor color. And then in order to shade our armor, we're then going to hit it with some Purple Swarm in the shadows. It'd be great if I could get it in focus rather than focusing on the airbrush, but it does get into focus in a moment. But as you can see here, what I'm doing is I'm focusing on the areas the opposite of where we would hit our zenithal highlighting, right? So we're hitting underneath the arms, we're hitting on the side of the legs, on the inside of the legs, underneath the backpack. And I've not speeded this up. You can see how slowly I'm doing this and just sort of building up those layers of Purple Swarm. Nice and gently, nice and slowly. This obviously takes a little bit of precision, a little bit of practice to make sure that it's consistent all the way over a model, but also consistent over an army as well. I think that this is it's a pretty easy thing to do, but not overdoing it is also important as well. However, if you want really extreme contrast within your shadows and then your highlight, I say highlight, but just the red armor. Then you can add more layers of Purple Swarm into it. You can see here it actually looks like it's quite dark, and this is just a couple of thin layers of Purple Swarm over it. You need to also decide at what point you're going to stop as well. It's often awkward to get behind the head and on the sides of the head without hitting, say, the backpack or surrounding shoulder pads as well. So there are some parts you're just going to have to go, I won't have as much shadow as I would normally have with a zenithal highlight, but I'm sacrificing that for the fact that my red armor is complete in 2 steps. So there are pros and cons here of doing a scheme like this, going from high and then shading down in this way. And the time-saving nature of it, I think, is a really important aspect for people who don't have much time to hobby. So what we're going to do next is just hit those areas that we want in black with matte black, just with the hairy brush. I decided not to do the trim on this model. I have been doing not a lot of trim on these Mark IV, and I still think they look pretty good, actually. I did a Gerasene Host miniature for Black Shields for the Horus Heresy without doing the trim, and I think that one was my preferred way of doing it, rather than kind of like painting the trim. And I think it also works for Blood Angels quite nicely as well. I want to say that Primaris Marines for 40k Blood Angels, they don't have their trim done in black or gold. I want to say that it's also red, and I think that actually carries over quite nicely. And also, again, a bit of a time saver. The whole point of this tutorial today is if you want to paint a red force, be it Tau or Blood Angels, 40k, Horus Heresy, whatever. This is just a really simple, easy way to do it. Heavy metal, on our metallic elements. For the soft arbor joints, I also painted those in silver as well. And then you can see everything kind of blocked in, ready for our next steps. And it's much easier to see with that base now, painted entirely in black, kind of the contrast of our model, the vibrancy of our model as well. As I say, 2 steps, so simple to do. And yeah, that pure red, that air paint from the Armour painter is quite vibrant over a red, so definitely worth checking out. It has some translucency to it as well, because it is an air paint. My advice would be just to add a couple of drops of thinner just to get it nicely through the airbrush. Next up, I've gloss varnished the model, and then I am applying transfers over it. You'll also notice that as we go through, I've just kind of added some rocks and some sand to the base, because I'm just kind of while things are drying, I'm just cracking on with the base. We won't focus on the base too much in this. All you need to know is here I've just super glued some rocks to the base, and then super glued some sand to the base as well. I use super glue rather than PVA just because it would be quicker. And then you can see here with sponge and some tweezers, I'm just applying some Banshee Brown here in order to create kind of chipping. You know, it's the Horus Heresy, right? These guys have been fighting a civil war for 7 years or so, so they're going to be pretty messed up, and their armor's going to be pretty messed up. Don't forget, if there's any paints that you want to buy in this tutorial, if you go direct to the Armour painter and use the code MEDAS5, you can get a 5% discount, and I get a little bit of a kickback as well, so why wouldn't you do it? Certainly, if like colours like Banshee Brown as well, I don't think you can get them in normal hobby stores at the moment. I think you have to go direct to the Armour painter. You don't need to buy it in the masterclass set, but as singles, I think the only way to grab them at the moment is via the Armour painter. Right, we are going to add a little bit of white spirit to some dioxine purple, and we're going to use this as our pin wash colour. Now, I think personally, not everyone will agree with me here, I think personally black is a little bit too harsh to pin wash reds with. I think that sometimes it dulls the colour down in a way that you just don't quite want, and again it affects the vibrancy of a model that you probably don't want to affect the vibrancy. You probably want your Blood Angels to be quite punchy, or at least I do. So I think pin washing it with purple is just a little bit more subtle. Purples, obviously we've got purples in the shadows anyway, so that kind of ties together really, really nicely. It makes kind of visually a lot of sense here. And also for the metallics, yeah, it just makes it a bit more interesting than, say, shading with black or shading with brown, right? Or washing with brown and washing with blacks. Yeah, adding purples into those metallics, yeah, it's just a little bit different, a little bit interesting. But you could always use just a black or a brown kind of oil wash for the metallic elements and do the armor in purples. And what you can see here right now is once it's dried, it's a very warm day, so it didn't take long to dry at all. I've then used a matte varnish to matte it down, and even though it's been matted down, it's still nice and bright and vibrant. And that is the really critical thing, personally, I think, with mid-tone colors and you know, particularly reds, is that I'm sure you've painted a red before, and then when you've matted it down, it loses all of its luster. You know, a matte varnish can really affect the chroma of red, the brightness of red, the vibrancy of the red. And I think the way to get around it, if you want to use a matte varnish on a red miniature, personally, not everyone will agree with me on this one, but personally, I think is just to start from a white undercoat, hit it with your, you know, brightest red or your red color, and then shade it with purples. And I think even then, when you matte it down, it still maintains its vibrancy. In terms of the highlights here, I'm just adding a bit of chipping, bit of brushwork on our black elements here. I did consider kind of doing these bits in grey, and I think if I had a bit more time and this wasn't for YouTube and I was trying to fit in multiple kind of like tutorials in one day, I probably would have done it in grey. As it was a YouTube tutorial, I was just like, look, let's keep it simple, let's just do a little bit of highlighting, you know, in metallic colour, keep it nice and simple. It still looks nice, and actually I think I would do this you know, moving forward, I'd be like, yeah, actually, I think with the reds and the blacks and the silver chipping and the highlights, I think it works quite nicely. But it's dealer's choice whether or not you want to highlight with grey here. And then just on the backpack, I guess I just did a little bit of dry brushing, nice and gentle, so it doesn't look too silvery and still maintains kind of the look of black about it. Chose to not use any gold here apart from on the transfer as well. There's obviously lots of gold on like the Forge World models, you know, lots of filigree, but I think that black and red just looks really, really tasteful. So just wanted to go for that. Transfers as well are quite difficult because I think personally the Forge World transfers are a little bit small. Like the Blood Angels icons are a bit small, especially for the Mark IV shoulder pads. So I'd be tempted to look into trying to get some of the 40k transfers because they fit really nicely, and I think they look really good as well. Like I don't find them, you know, offensive in any way. I think they look really, really nice. So here I've just mixed it in a little bit of black and white together just to make a grey, just because I had it on my palette, and you can see I'm dry brushing the base. I used some crackle paint, some Mordant Earth I think it was called, the black crackle paint from by GW. Just painted the rest of the base black, and then just dry brushing it with some greys, and I add increasing amounts of white into the black in order to kind of get to the next level and get to the next level until you're happy with it. If you want a kind of more like Isfan 5 base, I know the Blood Angels weren't there, but if you can do like a gentle highlight, but I'm going for something a bit more grey because I'm going to use some weathering powders on this afterwards. So I'm going to be using medium earth. Now, I think AK have discontinued these. So I think it's very hard to get hold of these, but from my understanding, I think they are reformulating them or they are coming back. So just watch this space. I think liquid pigments are great. And this one is great as well. I think it's medium earth, this one is called. You can just thin it by adding a little bit of white spirits into it, and the benefit of thinning it is it goes a little bit further as well as being a little bit less a little less intense on the base. But yeah, just be mindful that these are pretty tough to get hold of at the moment, and also you could always mix some white spirits with water or whatever, and you would have the same kind of effect, or white spirits with weathering powder, and you have the same kind of effect here. So you can see it looks very, very thin. It's probably a 1-to-1 mix of thinner and liquid pigments, but it dries quite intense. So just bear that in mind before using them. You can see there how it's dried. And this is it, the finished model. So I just want to say thank you guys for watching. Really appreciate it. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope you've seen how red is just really easy to accomplish. 2 steps and then the armor is basically done, right? I mean, it's really straightforward, apart from like the details, of course, but yeah. Massive thank you to my patrons. I really, really appreciate your support. This month I'm doing a Imperial Knight, a Knight Asheron, in fact. So going to be doing a custom scheme for that one. So make sure you go sign up. It's £4. Why wouldn't you go sign up? And a big thank you to the Army Painter for helping me with these videos, and a big thank you to Crusader Games as well for providing the models for this tutorial and all of my tutorials this year, in fact. I really, really appreciate it, so thank you ever so much. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to leave a comment, don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to like, all those things that YouTubers ask you to do, and I shall see you guys on the next one.